Hello, and welcome back to the Evolving Wellness Podcast and the Sarah Kleiner Wellness YouTube channel. I don't know if you've noticed, but I've taken a couple of weeks, actually a few weeks off of episodes. And today I'm going to talk about why I did that. And I'm also going to talk about a few things I've learned the hard way this summer. So if that sounds interesting, then stay tuned. Welcome back. My name is Sarah. If you're new here, thanks for being here. Today, I'm going to talk about a few things I've learned this summer the hard way, as I typically do. So let's get started. Now, number one, I learned the hard way that my stress and my diet do impact my hormones, like a lot. And I think it's this age where I am right now, from 45 to 46, was definitely more challenging hormonally than the years previous. And I know it will continue to be a little bit of an up and down thing, but what it's really told me is that I have to dial things in. I really have to dial things in with stress. And then with the diet, I was just letting things slip. And where I used to be with food is a different place than I am now. So I've really gotten my metabolism in a really good place, so that if I have something that's not a perfect meal, I don't really gain weight from it. I don't have a lot of issues from that. But what I have noticed is that if I do that too often, while I might not gain weight, I start to deal with hormonal issues. I start to deal with things being a lot more difficult in that latter half of the cycle, and sometimes even the first few days of the cycle. So one of the things that has been happening for me, it actually didn't happen this month because I took time off the podcast, and I've been saying no to a lot of things, just turning things down, moving things out of the way, prioritizing spending more time with my kids, prioritizing spending more time just resting, relaxing, and reorganizing a lot of things that I'm doing. I didn't have any hormonal headaches. I didn't even know that it was time for my cycle. It just came. And that's the way it's been for a really long time. But the months of May, June, and July, those three, horrible. These hormonal headaches would come in the morning and just last all day. And nothing I would do with red light, minerals, it just wasn't working at all. And that's something I have never really dealt with before. And the second symptom I was having was a lot of neck pain, joint pain in my knee, sometimes in my hip. And this is something that I hear from a lot of women when they're in that stage of shifting hormones. Estrogen begins to drop, and you can get joint pain because estrogen lubricates a lot of the joints. I've talked in previous episodes about why I'm hesitant for estrogen and myself, and I actually have fun episodes coming out soon. Dr. Sarah Pugh and I sat down yesterday with a videographer, just a last minute decision because she's been here since the middle of June. She's leaving this Saturday to go back to the UK, and then she's traveling all over the place to speak at a bunch of conferences. But we sat down with a videographer yesterday and recorded about 3 hours of footage of just chatting about all the things. So I'm going to talk a little bit more in depth about a lot of this stuff that's in this episode in those upcoming episodes. So stay tuned for that. But what I've really learned, again, is that these hormone fluctuations are way worse, and my body really lets me know if I'm overloaded with stress and I'm saying yes to too many things, which May was a really crazy month. I had a lot of things going in May. I went to Confluence in Texas. I also had some really negative online bullying from, ironically enough, and Sarah and I talk about this in the episodes, some doctors, surgeons, who you think would be mature, but they acted like 12-year-olds. And it was very stressful because I was attacked online. It was just a lot of things. And then I went straight from that into the Health Alchemy bundle that Carrie and I did together. That was a very stressful 2 weeks. Then things calmed down a little bit. My body was freaking out, by the way, during all of this because there was just a lot of things going on. Then I went into my first trip that my husband and I have done together in, I don't know, since my daughter was my son's age. My son's 2.5. We went away for 3 days together to Miami. It was really nice. It was really fun, but it was still stressful, the traveling, the worrying about the kids, all the coordinating of everything. And then we got back that Saturday and I immediately went to the Return to Nature retreat, which again was lovely. I met so many lovely people, had a really good time, but it was more traveling, not sleeping in my own bed, which I'm just really not good at. I just don't sleep well, irregular food schedules, just everything off. And so again, July, that cycle, the beginning of July, miserable, headaches, the joint pain. So what I've done again is to move things around, shift things around, dial in my nutrition, understand that I can't just get away with sliding things in. Just can't do that. And then I have changed my mind a little bit about this. I decided to experiment with a little bit of collagen. Now, I don't have a discount code. I don't have a link or anything like that. I may get one. If there's interest, let me know. But Crucial 4 is the brand that was recommended to me. Again, no affiliation, no code. But I decided to start playing around with that to see if it would help. And it has. It actually has really helped with the joint pain stuff that was happening. That didn't happen at all this month. And I also have been playing with the LifeWave patches since November, actually. And I've talked a little bit about those. I really am hesitant to get involved in any MLMs because I hate the energy that comes along with those of people that are just very predatory and gross. Just gross. I just don't like it. But if a product works, I will try it. I'll use it. And so the patches, when I start to feel like the achiness coming on in my neck, I'll patch on the patches myself. I use the X39 and the Aeon. And I'll also use glutathione patches because that's another thing that's been happening right before the cycle is that I'll feel very like I'm getting sick. Like I'll start getting a sore throat. I'll start feeling like achy, like a flu-like feeling, which is another sign of dysregulated estrogen progesterone, which again is part of par for the course. But can we make this not so horrible? That's my goal here. And trying to share information about this with the people that listen. So I know I have some male listeners, so some of this might not be relevant at all. But between the collagen that I've been drinking with my coffee in the morning, I eat my breakfast as usual, wait a little bit, have the coffee with collagen in it. And then I'll do the patches when I start to feel something coming on with pain, glutathione, I'll put on my neck when I start to feel like the sore throat feeling has been working. And so this month again, great. So I've learned. That's a lesson I've had to learn really hard is that you can't, just because you're not gaining weight, you can't just let things slide in and not have consequences at some point, especially I think this age. And some people are just more sensitive to that. And then to the stress and saying no and really drawing boundaries, which is hard because I want to please everyone. I want everyone to like me. I really do, which is a character flaw, I think. I really care how the information that I put out there, how it affects people. I do. But I've had to just really start putting up boundaries about certain things and my time and my energy. So things are going to look a little different for me in my day-to-day life. Okay, so that was the first lesson I've learned the hard way. The second lesson I learned this summer was actually when I was in Miami, and that is about reflections and UV light. And I talk about this with Dr. Sarah in the upcoming podcast a little bit more. But I'm actually going to be changing the My Circadian app, the app that I helped to, well, I created it, and I have a developer that he adds things in as I ask him. We're going to add in a feature where you can adjust the UV index for sand and adjust the UV index for water and for reflective surfaces like snow, because I was sitting under the shade, reading a book, living my best life, the most relaxed I've been, and I don't even know how long. Just awesome. But my husband came down and he's like, "You're really red. You need to go in." And I'm like, "What are you talking about? I've been under the shade." And I went in and literally just half of my face and my chest and my arms were sunburned from sitting under the shade. And so I always say you can't get a sunburn sitting in the shade, but apparently you can if you're sitting near a reflective surface. So we're going to adjust the My Circadian app under the vitamin D timer to show you can add in reflective surface to adjust the UV index for that. So stay tuned for that update. Go to mycircadianapp.com, download the app if you don't have it. You can use my code Sarah K for a free trial of it if you don't already have it. So that's coming. The next thing I've learned when we're talking about the sun and vitamin D is that after working with so many people in this space of circadian biology, quantum biology, I'm seeing that it's really difficult for people to achieve high vitamin D levels without vitamin D supplementation. And I'm also seeing that it's not necessary. It's just not necessary. And I've also changed my mind a little bit on supplementation. I used to be like, never ever. Now, if somebody comes to me with extremely low vitamin D and just feeling really horrible, there might be a usage, and this is not medical advice. Nothing on the podcast is medical advice. There might be a time when someone needs to just put in a little supplementation to get them to a better place while they're working on their light environment, their sun exposure, their lifestyle. I'm starting to see that can help people to start feeling better, but it shouldn't be long term. Now, I have a whole article about vitamin D and the nuance of it, because you don't want to just look at one number. Someone might have a vitamin D, D3 level, and it's a hormone, by the way. I'm sure I'll get that in the comments. They might have hormone vitamin D or D3 of, let's say, a 75, but they might have their 125. You really want the D and the 125 to be a 1-to-1 ratio. And so when you're looking at these numbers, number one, if you're not supplementing, I had someone in my group recently that her levels were 56 and she's just been getting natural sunlight. I'm like, I'm actually good with that. I'm actually happy with that. But we also need to look at your 125D. And then you also would want to look at your serum magnesium levels. You'd want to look at your thyroid. There's so many other things that can impact your body's ability to uptake D3. And it's not just one number. I think people are so hyper focused on this one number and they don't understand the whole system. And so I'll put that article in the show notes for you if you haven't read that already. It's on my blog at www.sarahkleinerwellness.com/blog. And it talks about how no one's overdosed from vitamin D from sunlight because the body actually does have a mechanism to basically shut down the production once it's reached its dose that it can take in for that day. But with supplements, there's not the same thing. And you can really mess up your vitamin A levels. Everyone's been talking about vitamin A lately. You can really push down serum A. You can, and everyone says K2 and magnesium are going to fix all the issues of vitamin D supplementation. That's not true because it doesn't fix the issue with vitamin A. And if your vitamin A goes low, guess what? You're actually going to create an issue potentially with your body and its ability to stay resilient and healthy, the immune system, if you have low vitamin A. Could be causing more harm than good. Again, that article's down in the show notes, but that's something I've definitely noticed with a lot of clients and people in my community is that their D levels might be in the 50s, 60. I'm happy with that. I'm good with that. Unless someone's like living on the equator, not in the modern world, like we have to look at the full picture. And I probably will get people disagreeing with me on it. That's fine. I only speak from having worked with people and talking with people. And after really mulling things around in my head for a really long time, I try not to just spit things out there because I've seen in the past how that can really create waves and upset people and then be inaccurate after a time. So that's the second thing. The third one, actually, I think we're on 4 now, is melatonin. And I've really been digging into the research of Russell Ryder and Scott Zimmerman, as well as talking with people and looking at how this information works on a day-to-day basis. Now, the whole don't take it if your body makes it, I'm starting to see holes in that. I'm not seeing the data to back it up in humans. I'm actually not even seeing it in rats. If there is, please feel free to throw it in the comments, to tag me in it, to send it to my email. I would love to see it, the info@sarahkleinerwellness.com. If there is research, I'm open to looking at it. I'm always open to looking at things, but I'm starting to see a lot of holes in things that people are just repeating because somebody with a lot of letters behind their name said it in an authoritative tone, or somebody online says it in an authoritative tone, which will lead me to the next point that a lesson I've learned this summer. So I'm looking at this melatonin data and I'm like, they're again, like vitamin D, where I said never ever, always just use this vitamin D lamp and sunlight. there might be some times where short-term supplementation can be helpful. Like if somebody is recovering from long COVID, or if somebody just has a chronic illness, and it's a short-term cycle that someone would go on, like with vitamin D. It wouldn't be long-term. But sometimes I'm finding, and I'm just seeing, people just sometimes need that help, and it's a hormone. So we have to be careful with hormone replacement in the body. Okay, the last one that I've learned, this little lesson over the summer, is online advice and how it really impacts people. I've just seen this more and more of what I just alluded to in the last one. People who are extremely authoritative, people who say things in this absolute tone of voice. They get the likes, the clicks, the views, but the information doesn't always apply to everyone. And then someone can get this really dogmatic viewpoint and gaslight themselves. That's what I'm seeing a lot of. And I get a lot of messages of people who are afraid to, if they're like septic, okay? If I'm septic, and please cancel me if you disagree, that's fine. If I'm septic, I probably would seek medical attention for that. And there's a lot of distrust of mainstream medicine. I have that 100%. But there's not the same distrust for alternative medicine. And I'm seeing people spend a lot of money on these alternative protocols and or get themselves into a really bad situation because they're refusing to see a doctor. They're refusing to get any care. And then they end up in a really bad situation for themselves, for their kids. So again, am I like, oh, I'm pro-medical establishment? No, trust me. The trust there is gone. But what I'm saying is that this polarizing, I'm saying this with authority and talking down to you thing is really impacting people negatively. And so I'm hoping there's people like me, there's people like Dr. Sarah, there's a lot of really good people out there who have good information and do want to help. And one of the things that I've been asked a lot in my community is, how do we know? How do we know the information that we're getting online is going to be helpful? How do we know it is true? And I think that putting that through a little checklist is helpful. So when someone talks about a study, even myself, look at that data. Look at who the study was done on. Was it done on animals? Was it done like this melatonin study that people say melatonin thins the retina? Well, that was done in hairless albino mice. So I don't know. I question if that really happens in humans. So I look at that. And then a lot of people say things with no scientific backing. They just say it with a really authoritative voice. That's one thing to look at. I also look at where are they going with this? Now, I'm the first one to say I do have affiliate codes. I have links that enables me to keep showing up online. That enables me to create free ebooks, free posts, free information, because I love doing it. Working with brands, working with companies does allow me to continue doing that. But sometimes there are people who every post that they do, everything that they say is going to lead you to buying a product. And it's a new product, just always a new product. And I'm really cautious not to say that none of those products are any good, because some of them could be really good. But I'm just really cautious around that type of a person who has a new product all the time and is constantly creating a problem, always creating a problem and scaring people and getting people like really riled up emotionally to bring them to a product, right? So that's one thing to look at. And then somebody who's always speaking negatively about other people to make themselves look better. That's another one that's really gives me the ick, is that people have to just make their whole thing online talking negatively about other people. Now, there's a lot of people online that I'm like, yeah, someone kind of needs to call this person out. I'm not going to be the one to do it. I just don't do that. Even when I was attacked earlier this year, I handled that offline. So just take things through those lenses when you're looking at who I should take advice from. And if they're just constantly coming at you to make you afraid of everything, if they're always speaking from a fear-based landscape, it's a really big red flag. And I'm not saying that they don't have anything positive to add or offer. I'm just saying it's a really big red flag. So those are the little lessons I've learned this summer, a few things I'm mulling around. And I hope that this little miniature episode was helpful for you. I will be releasing the episodes with Dr. Pugh whenever we get that footage back and get it edited. But I wanted to put out a little episode as we're in a little bit of a podcasting break right now. And just to say hi and thank you for being here. Thanks for listening. Stay tuned. I'll have more things coming soon, and enjoy the rest of your summer.